Green here with a Terran versus Terran mechanic tutorial video. This is not a video about build orders. There is a build order in the bottom that we'll be conforming to. If you're curious about the build order, it will be there. You can follow it to a T if you'd like. This is not about mastering a build order. Okay, this is not about if I build this unit, I can go and dominate that guy, maybe. This is about knowing how to beat somebody. This is about learning the skills that translate into good play mechanically later on in the game when you're taking 2 and 3 bases. When you're both maxed, this is going to help you beat that person who is also maxed. These are mechanics. When you do a build, it is a build. Your mechanics are what make that build good or bad. And this is the video that will teach you conceptually how you can improve as you play. 2 of my friends just started playing the game. They're playing Terran. They say to me, they're like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be working on. I'm just building stuff. Well, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're building, how can you improve? How can I make improvements on a skill that I'm not even aware of? That's a ridiculous request to have. So this is going to be a video that's going to impart upon you the things you must look out for, the things to kind of be alerted to, so that when you are doing them, you can actively improve on them. You can take mental notes. Oh, okay, I need to work on this. This is a skill I need to work on. The other thing my friends say to me, they say to me, Chris, they say, you know, I'm doing fine. I'm macroing better. I'm doing those builds you said to do, and I'm mastering, hitting my timings. But I don't know how to handle this cheese. They cheese me, and I don't know what to do, and it's hard to work on getting good at Terran if I keep dying and don't even get to play the game. They use the phrase, I don't even get to play the game. How am I going to improve? So I thought to myself, what is a build that can teach them to macro, teach them to control their army, and they won't die to any cheese? And that build is this build. It's going to be a Marine, Tank, Viking push. The goal of the build is to account for everything, give you early superiority, all while practicing movement and macro at the very same time. So let's get into the first concept, questioning. Every time you play StarCraft 2, there's a reason for everything. From the timings to the placements of buildings, to the allocation of units. Everything has a reason. To get good at StarCraft, you must know that reason. Knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe Rainbow, cue it. The important thing to note is supply depots for now. We must always say to ourselves, okay, well, I have this thing. It's a unit, it's a structure. How can I use this to benefit me? Well, this is a supply depot. It can create a wall in. So many of you are familiar with the bunker, barracks, supply depot, barracks, supply depot, wall in. And you're probably asking yourself, okay, well, why are you not just putting this in the wall? What if they come up your ramp? Well, in TvT, a lot of times you can scout if they're going to barracks. If you scout they're going to barracks, then we're going to go put a bunker. If you scout no barracks, that means they're proxying, so we're going to put a bunker. If you scout a barracks and a gas, they're not 2 barracks rushing you, then you don't need a wall in. So these are things that we, as a Terran player improving our game, can start to learn. Okay, he took a gas, I see the barracks, he's not cheesing me by proxy barracksing. Okay, I'm fine. Okay? If he were to cheese you a proxy barracks, this is still pretty good because now your barracks is back here and you can build a bunker and not lose your Marines as they rally in. This is very important. You don't want to lose your Marines as they rally. It's a lot of things that this can do for you. So we see him going gas. We see him going barracks. We know, okay, I don't need a bunker yet. Now we're learning, right? Now we're understanding. So let's keep going. We have a supply depot here, supply depot here. So if we want to create a wall, we can. This is important. So we're leaving ourselves the option for a wall in. Those are the reasons for the 2 supply depots here. Now, we again ask ourselves questions at all times. What is he doing? What am I doing? How can I stop what he's doing? The question we must ask ourselves is, why is he going gas? Well, a very common use of gas is to build Reapers. Now, a Reaper is stronger than a Marine. It heals when it leaves combat. So if it were to attack your Marines and then run away, your Marines are now weak, and maybe it can kill your Marines. So we have to make sure that we can account for the possibility of Reapers without overexerting ourselves. We don't want to say, oh, they might go Reapers, let's build a bunch of bunkers here, right? That's a waste of money. So what we can do is understand how a Reaper works and what Reapers tend to do. Reapers cannot jump up 2 large cliffs. This is 1, this is 2. It can't come up here, it can't come up here. It can only come up here in these two locations, and it's more likely that they're building a Reaper to come up through the side. If I wanted to come up your ramp, I would just do that with a regular Marine. I don't need to build a Reaper to do that. So we can eliminate this as a possibility and put your Marines right here. Now we've made it so that if they come up here, you have a Marine ready to intercept. And this is your first job, is to eliminate threats. This is a threat. A Reaper could come in here. I'm going to put Marines here to stop it from doing that. Done deal, right? Any Reaper scout is going to get beat. You're pretty safe, okay? The next thing we have to account for is a secondary timing, right? Okay, well, Reapers could come, but what if he builds a factory, right? That's possible. What if he builds Hellions? Okay, Hellions beat Marines. So how do I beat a Hellion with Marines? Now, the obvious answer is a bunker, but the less obvious answer is, to a new player, well, when do I build the bunker? Well, you're a Terran, and if you read the build order, you'll know that we'll be going fast factory. We're going factory into starport, so you have a factory. This is about the fastest a factory could be. Maybe it could be a second or two quicker, I don't know. But this is the fastest it can be. And you have to ask yourself, okay, well, if I'm a Terran and he's a Terran, and I'm worried about Hellions, when should I put my bunker? Well, my factory is done. His factory could also be done. That's feasible, right? He could also have a factory done. And a Hellion build time is 30 seconds. Hellions are very fast. It probably takes him about 10 seconds to run across the map. So in about 40 seconds, he could have a factory swapped with a reactor producing 2 Hellions at a time running across the map. If 2 Hellions came in 40 seconds, they would roast your Marines. So you have 40 seconds to find an answer to Hellions. What's that answer? Well, the answer is going to be a bunker. So we have to play safe, but play reasonably safe. We don't want to over commit to something. So we think Hellions can come in. We think Reapers still might be coming. So maybe we put some Marines here. We don't know exactly what he's doing. We have Marines patrolling. Maybe the Reapers haven't shown themselves yet. We don't know. We got to keep the Marines here to make sure. Now we're putting a bunker down. Now we're safe against Hellions, right? By the time the Hellions arrive, you're going to have a bunker there. You're perfectly fine. If you were to do some sort of like Marauder push or something like that with the gas, try to bust your bunker or some sort of SCV all in, anything, this bunker is going to help you beat them. So we're now safe. And now we're up to our starport. Now, if you've read the build order, the goal is going to be, as I said in the beginning, to get up to a starport and produce tanks, Vikings, and Marines. These are the quintessential Terran units. They encompass everything from unit control to long-distance area control, as well as air control. A Viking, a very powerful air unit, a tank, a very powerful ground AoE unit, and the Marine, a very versatile all-around unit. This is the goal of the build. You're going to be practicing producing at the same time while attacking and controlling areas in the game. I want to also impart on you the importance of denying information. Now, earlier here we're patrolling to stop a Reaper from coming in. We are also going to try our best to stop a Terran from knowing what we're doing. If the Terran does not know what we're doing, it's going to be hard for them to account for the things that we are building. It's going to be hard for him to know exactly what to do if he doesn't know exactly what we are doing. Now, this is a great example of a bad example. We have a starport, a factory, and a barracks here. What's wrong with this picture? Well, why are they so close to this base? This is something that I see a lot of players do that they cannot afford to do. You cannot put all your structures in the same area. Versus another Terran, they could very easily scan your base and see everything that's going on. So as a habit, this is all about building good habits. As a habit, make it your job to always put your factories and your starports in various locations that are not going to be seen by scans. If you were to scan your base, hypothetically, and see 2 gas but not see the factory and starport, it's very possible he may say to himself, okay, I think he's going Cloak Banshee. I'm going to build an engineering bay and turrets. Well, guess what? He just spent a bunch of money on things that don't do him any good. You're building tanks. What good are turrets against tanks? So this is making him weaker. This is making you stronger. This is all good. He doesn't know. He's scared. Psychological advantage. It's all adding up in your favor. The other thing I want to talk to you about in terms of habits. People who macro as Terran get supply blocked all the time. They have to call down supply depots. That's not good. You rather put down mules. You rather save scans. These are better uses of your energy. So what's a good way to build supply depots? What's a good rate of supply depot production? The rule of 3 that I have for every race, except for Zerg, is that if you are on 3 producing structures with a tac lab on barracks, for example, or a factory and a starport and a barracks, these are 3 structures that are producing, you must constantly build 1 supply depot. That means if you're producing from all 3 of these, there must always be 1 building. You will not get supply blocked, and if you are constantly producing from these structures, your money will stay low. This means at all times you will be the strongest that you can possibly be. This is important for determining whether or not you lose a game for reasons of build order or reasons of not having enough army. A lot of times I'll see players, they'll say, oh, I lost. That build is better than my build. But if they have 500 minerals that they haven't spent, then maybe their build wasn't better, maybe their macro is worse. So if you are never supply blocked and your money is always down and you lose, you can start eliminating problems that you may have had. This will make you better, this will make you a better analyzer of your games. So always produce 1 supply depot at all times, always question why, always account for everything, always spread your structure so they don't know what's going on. Alright, the second thing, units. We're spreading our factories, spreading our starports, but what good will that be if all your stuff is in the middle and they scan and see tanks? If they don't know where your factory is, if they don't know where your starport is, and they scan and see a tank, well guess what? They know what you're doing. So it's important, if you're not using a unit, to put it off to the side. If you're not using this tank, if you're not using this Viking, put it over here. That way, when they do scan, they can't see anything. Now, we're hiding everything, we're denying information, but we don't know exactly what's going on ourselves, right? We don't see what they're doing. Now, at 6 minutes and 30 seconds, this is a crucial timing. You have to ask yourself, how do I want to know what he is doing? Now, while you're doing a very strong push that can kind of beat anything, you still want to know if you can what's going on. Now, maybe your response is to build a Reaper, right? You could build a Reaper, you've got some extra gas. That might lower your tank count, but it might also give you information, correct? But you could also use a scan, right? That'll lower your mineral count, but it'll probably be a more guaranteed source of information. At 7 minutes and 20 seconds, if you are familiar with my timings list, if you're not, I'll probably post a link to it in the bottom. There is a general consensus of timings that, units will come at. A Cloak Banshee typically comes at around 7 minutes and 20 seconds. That means it's done, completed, it's out, it's ready to do something. At 7 minutes and 20 seconds, which is about a minute from now, they could be hitting your base with Cloak Banshees. Now, while that's not a problem, because guess what, you have Vikings, you don't necessarily have a lot of scans. You may only have 1 by then. So if you use your mules at 7:20 and then a Banshee comes in, well then guess what, you're kind of screwed, right? So it's important to know what your opponent is doing or account for it. This is a critical moment. At 6:30, you must decide, do I want to just play it safe and build an engineering bay, or do I want to just scan? Now, if you scan and you don't see 2 gas, well, guess what? They're not going Cloak Banshee. But if you do, you could say to yourself, okay, they're going Cloak Banshee. Cloak Banshees will become a problem for me when I'm pushing out here. So maybe I should build an engineering bay, and then when I push out, I can build turrets. We're asking questions. Okay, they could go Cloak Banshee. I need turrets. This will solve all my problems. If they're not going Cloak Banshee, I don't need to worry about that. So try your best to account for everything. Try your best to just think and then respond. The more you play the game, the more this will become a fluent response. The final thing before we move out to see the fight and see the push is keybinds. I see a lot of players use the F2 keybind. That's all they use, or they'll put it all in one keybind. This is not good. Every unit has a role. Your role determines the keybind that it goes on. If something fights air units, it's probably good to have it on an air unit keybind. If something fights just ground units, it's probably good to have it on a good ground unit. If 2 units have different spells, maybe you want to put them on different keybinds so you don't have to hit tab to get those units. Very important. I recommend 3 keybinds. That's what I do. A lot of pros do it. I actually use 4, but I recommend as a starter to get used to 3. Even if you're bad at it, get used to it. It's going to make you better. Another good habit to get into is when you push out with Terran, bring an SCV or 2. It can repair mechanical units. It can build bunkers. It can build turrets. It can help you. Always good to have one. So as we push up, let's talk about area control. We're working on unit control. We have our 3 keybinds. We're working on macro. We have our macro keybinds and things like that. Now let's work on area control with troop movements. If this is an area that's advantageous, I want to control it. I want to use my tanks to make him not get into this area. If he's mining from this base and I have control of this ramp, I can attack this base safely. If he's mining from this base and I have this ramp controlled, he can't really get to me safely. So I have to look at this map and say to myself, what are things that I want control of? I'm playing a very controlling unit. A siege tank has lots of range. How do I control it? Now let's say, for example, he was on 3 bases. Well, then you want to control this area, right? Because that denies him access. So again, when you're playing the game, always say to yourself, what are areas that are important to control? How can I control them? So in this case, we're going to build 2 bunkers and siege up right here. Now note that I'm not putting the bunkers at the ramp. If he has Marines waiting here, he'll see them and he'll immediately come down. But if you're right here, with the Vikings giving spotting, if they were to come attack you, they'd get shot. Now, again, you cannot see up a ramp, and a tank does not see as far as it shoots. If you look at this tank's range, you'll see it comes out, well, actually I have to see in a second here, to right about here. That means anything in this area can get shot and probably will die. It's very early in the game. Anything in this area gets shot by both tanks. And any air units around this kind of area get shot by the Vikings. The Vikings are providing vision, the tanks are providing defense, and the Marines are supplementing your tanks. They're making sure that they can't just run in with a bunch of Marines and kill you. The bunkers are making it harder for that to happen. Another thing to note is that you only have 2 tanks and a few Marines. The entirety of your defense relies on these 2 tanks staying alive and not dying to do a lot of damage. You want to make sure you do your best to not unsiege them both at the same time. You must creep forward. This is an important Terran skill to have. Creeping and just slowly suffocating your opponent is a lot of what Terran versus Terran tank battles are about. Getting an air advantage with Vikings and pushing your ground advantage with tanks. So the rest of the video is just going to be me slowly pushing up the ramp. And there's nothing really to discuss here other than you want to control both ramps. If he had an expansion here, then the next ramp you want to control is this ramp. If he were to send units down from up here, it would have to go through this ramp. So this is an important point to control as your secondary objective. Think of the game as a mission in real life. You have objectives. You have areas you must gain control of. This is your next mission. That means Vikings must patrol and give vision, and tanks must secure that location. And just use logic like that to determine where you need to go next and how you want to push. And do your best to slowly push while not giving away units. You want to do your best not to lose anything. So that'll be it for the tutorial. If you have any questions, please post them down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.